Hello everyone, welcome to this outward modding tutorial. Today we'll be going over items, so let us open our sideloader interface, select our mod. I cleared out since last time, so we'll be working out from scratch right now. And if you go inside of the asset pack category of items, we see that there's many things that are actually classified as items, but there are a few that we usually mod more than others. So today I will only cover weapons, food and skills, and hopefully through whatever you learn today you will be able to apply this to the other things that are mentioned here as well. And if there's something in particular you're curious about that isn't covered here, then I recommend consulting the Discord, as I haven't really touched them myself, so I can't give super good advice on them. Okay. So let's get right into it. For searching and finding items, I usually go to the SL item here, because that contains all of the items. And then I search for whatever item I want to change. So today we'll be changing the iron sword. We're gonna be changing the savage stew. And we're gonna be changing predator strike. Or not predator strike, but predator leap. So let's get right into this with iron sword. So when we have two options. Either we replace an item that already exists, or we create a totally new one. So if we were to replace the iron sword and change its stats, we just set the new item ID to be the same as the target, so you basically overwrite the old one. If you want to create a new item, for example, we're gonna call this legendary iron sword, then we need to set this ID to be something else, because if we have the ID set to the old one, this means that the iron sword will get a new name called legendary iron sword and have the stats that are shown here. So you want this to be new. Positive values or positive item IDs are the same which is used by the developers. In the modding community we have set it so that we use mostly negative values, and in this way it's more easy for us not to overwrite some vanilla items. And the way we organize who gets which values is that we go to the community server, or the outward modding community server, and if you go to the landing page and you click on access to modders and development channels and you scroll down to reserve ID, then you can see and you can reserve which IDs that you're gonna use. I don't recommend reserving IDs unless you're gonna publish, but this is a good way to remember which IDs are taken and how it might conflict if you, for example, select a value that's 4,650 or something, or 46,500, then you might overwrite something from this user here. So that's pretty much it. If I remember correctly, it was around 100,000 we were at right now. So this means that this will be a unique item. Okay. Then we can set a description. So okay, I'm just writing down an example. Let's see, if we are enraged, okay, so this is our goal, or one of our goals, is that if we are enraged, so if we have the range boon, then we will inflict burning and scorch on the enemy. So this is just an example. We wanna also get this sword by putting a normal iron sword inside of a legacy chest, so we can do that. So we create another one here. And this time we want to take an iron sword and overwrite the old one. And for this we'll need to get this new ID and put that in the legacy item ID. So what this means is that if the legacy item ID here is -1, that means that you get the same items as you put in. If you want a different item, then you have to put in the corresponding item ID. So whenever we put in the iron sword into the legacy item, legacy chest, then we get this item out. Right, so that's what it means. Other things that might be interesting is a pickable. You should have this one on for most items because this lets you pick it off the ground or pick it up from the ground. There are some things here that are relevant for consumables and skills. Tags we'll get into much later, probably when we're talking about skills as well. And then we have the stat holder. So this is also something we want to change. So let us say that whenever we have put this in a legacy chest, then we get some raw damage as well. So that's how you change the base damage. You have other attributes here that you might want to change. The base value is how much you have to pay for an item. Like how much you, what's the buy price. You have the raw weight, you have the durability. If you change this to -1, that means that it's unbreakable. Okay, then you have the damage resistance of the item. So if you're wondering what these different numbers are, these are different element types. And those correspond to what you see in this list. So physical is 0, ethereal is 1, DK2, and so it goes on. Right. So that is pretty much it, pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that's really missing now is this lower part. You have auto-generate attack and you have attacks. So attacks is basically what you see on the wiki whenever you are searching up. Let's see, we can open this up. And we search for sword or swords. And if we go to the bottom, we have these multipliers and stuff. So you have the damage, you have the impact, and you have the stamina usage. And this is basically what you have here, but instead of multipliers, it's writing the damage straight out. So you can customize how much the different attacks. So the first two here are just the left swing and the right swing, or the right swing and left swing. And then you have your thrust attack, which is this one. So how much damage that one does. And then you have your two combos for your sword. So what you see here, the last one. So that's basically what those are. So you can manually change them, or you can also just auto-generate them. And that's pretty much it for the weapon stats. Then we go back here. So I don't wanna, in our case, when we are just editing an iron sword, we might not want to edit everything and save it. Maybe we only want to add this property to the item and then we leave the rest as is without editing it. And this makes it easy so that many mods can change the same item without overwriting each other and making things like cancelling things out. So we just remove everything that we are not gonna be editing on the original item. This is common procedure. So I'm just removing everything here. Except this legacy item ID, and usually these are required too, I think. So then we have the iron sword ready. And then we have this legendary iron sword. This is a new item anyway, so I'm just gonna keep everything here as is without removing the editing or changing the editing. Okay, and then we have this effect that we talked about earlier, or we wrote about. So whenever we are enraged, then we're gonna inflict burning and scorched. And the way we do that is through the effect transform. This is the other thing that people usually change in mods. Other than the stats, it is the effects that we inflict on using weapons. So I now created an SL effect transform on this weapon. And on weapons, they're typically has a transform name called hit effects. The most important part is that it contains the word hit. That is the important part for it to work. You have some things that you typically don't use on hit effects, and then you have effects and effects conditions. So these are important for us. When we get into skills, we'll consider more of these effects. But right now we only, let's do the add status effect, and we can also add status effect build up. So this is a chance, add status effect is a chance of inflicting a status, and we're gonna inflict the burning and scorched. Let's say that we inflict scorched as a chance, so we're gonna head over here to status effects, and we're gonna just search for scorched here, and it's called the burn. Chance to contract, let's say that is 20%, and here we can change if we want to affect the player instead of the enemy. So to affect the enemy, we just set this to true, but we're gonna affect the enemy and not the user. So this will be set to false. Then we have add status effect. This one we wanna inflict burning. So we can just write in burning, and it's called burning here as well. That's fine. I think I selected add all status effect. This is the wrong one. So let us fix that. Add status effect build up. Here we go. And this is called burning. And we can say 20% here as well. And we can basically set the same stuff. Okay. If we want to affect the controller or not. So that's pretty much it. These are set. And now the other condition that we mentioned is that this should only happen if we happen to be enraged. So we go here to effects condition. There are many things that you can use here. Get more into them later in specifics, but we can just scroll over slowly, and I'll say whenever there's something that I often use. So equip durability condition, this is something that I occasionally use just to make sure that I have durability if I'm using a weapon or something special happens whenever you have a certain amount of durability. Then you have equipment slot hashtag. This is really useful on skills, but not so useful on weapons. Okay. The one that you use a lot as has status effect condition. This is the one that we will actually be using. And then you have something similar for has status level condition, which would be an example would be probe. So if you want to do something special with a weapon, if you have probe, then this is really nice. And yeah, you have some imbue stuff for imbue. But yeah, as you can imagine, most of the things are relevant for using skills and not whenever you're hitting with a regular weapon. Right. So let us put enrage here. So I'm a bit unsure of the name, but I think it's just called rage. The thing is, with rage, discipline, and different boons, those all have multiple stages or multiple types. For example, you have the regular variant and you have the amplified variant whenever you have shamanic resonance. So all of those, you have the regular version and the amplified version. Those are different status effects, but they have a grouping, and that's what we call by the status type. We also have another type of grouping, which is called the status family, but I've tested this previously, and this although You can use the status family. I don't find it that useful. And what they use the most is just status specific. And that status specific is basically what we wrote earlier with the burn. That is the status identifier. Okay, so we just call it rage, and we can also invert. We need to check the owner, like we need to be enraged and not the target. And then we're pretty much ready there. So now we have our hit effect with the condition. We have some other stuff. We have Itemvisuals. These are also sometimes changed. For example, you want to make a weapon bigger, you can do it here. And then, for example, you want to change the weapon type, so you can change it from a 100 sword to a 200 sword, and then that's the way you do that. So yeah, you change the size on the item visual, and then yeah, you want to make this into a 200 sword, you change this to 200 here, and then you also need to remember to change the 200 type. You have 3 different variations. For a 200 sword, it should be 200 right. If it is a mace, you go 200 left, and if it's a halberd, 200 left. I think if you're using a spear, it's also 200 left. I might be wrong on that, but I think that is correct. Anyway, I'm gonna change it back to 100 sword. Anything else that's interesting is the health leech ratio. You don't usually do that through the hit effects, but you do it here. So if you want to make something that heals you, similar to vampiric weapons, this is like where you change it. And then at the end you have something called ignore half resistances. People don't usually do anything with those. Those are used in game by enemies such as gargoyle or scarlet emissaries in Caldera. And that's pretty much it. So we got our iron sword, or our iron swords, ready. The basic iron sword that we're just editing to add this legacy item option, and then we have the legacy item itself. Okay, so we can then go and check it. Hang on a moment. Okay, so we have created a character. I'm gonna unlock this door. I'm gonna put this iron sword inside of this legacy chest, and we're gonna just do a quick test whenever we transfer it, if it's gonna work well. So let's skip over to our new character. It's this legacy chest. Okay, here we go. Let's get the town key and open it up on this new character, and we see that we get this legendary iron sword, and pretty much has everything. And let's just test it on these trugs over here. So I'm gonna turn them to be invincible. Remember, we set it so that in case we are enraged, then it inflicts the debuffs. But yeah, see, it didn't happen. Let's get a rage potion. And try drinking that. And we see now we're getting the build-up, and we also got randomly this burn debuff as well. So things are working properly. Hello? Okay, I will mention something more regarding the items. So earlier I went over basically what is inside of this, which is the XML, which is associated with what you have in sideloader, your menus there. But there is more going on that might be interesting, and that is this texture file. And you have the icon itself, so you can basically draw or edit this as you wish, and you can update it. And in a similar way, you also have the pyrite. In this case, I'm using the pyrite great hammer. Here we can also change, for example, these texture files. You can draw on them. I don't recommend changing this, but I'll explain all of them. So you have something called norm texture, sometimes also called normal texture. So this is basically, it tells you which way the light will bounce whenever it hits like a particular place on the texture map. So which direction the light will bounce. So I recommend looking at some videos to see, or like get a grasp of how it works. I also have something called det norm text and gem text. I think these are used to just generate the different colors. You also have a other one, which is just the regular texture. So if you go to the iron sword, so either one of these should work. You also have a main texture, so you can draw on that. Another way to change the colors would be to go into the properties, and here you can change the main colors, so RGB, and also the how transparent it is. And you have some other stuff here. This is related to how much it glows. So if you, for example, if you extract, not extract, but if you get the template for Merton's Fire Poker, this will probably have a value that is much greater than 1. So if it is 1, then it doesn't glow, like if it's less than 1. But if you have a value that is much greater, then it will start glowing. So many of the glowing swords, they have a spec color field here that has really high values. Or emission color, I'm not sure, it might be either or. I think this might actually just be how metally they are. So yeah, it might just be the emission color here that's really high. I think actually that might be the case instead. Otherwise, you also have map maps here, which I found interesting. And if these are set to true, then they might not look as pretty. Map is basically just a way to more render different things efficiently, I think. That's at least my understanding. I'm a noob though. So if this is a true, then they're more efficient, but they look a bit more ugly. So as for the pyrite one, we have to go back here. And if we want to change the color, then we would go here and we would change probably these values or some of the colors that are here. That's good for recoloring. If you want to make a unique item that's completely different mesh, then you will have to do that in a different video. But yeah, let's carry on with the next part. Okay, then we move over to consumables. Let's open the Savage Stew. I won't change many things here. I will actually just talk about different parameters, since you got kind of a good introduction with the weapon already. And that's pretty much it. So it is important that you have usable set to true on consumables so that you can use it from your inventory. In this case, we also have quantity removed on use. This is set to 1. This is typically the case. Then we have group item in display. This is such that you have a stack of items instead of having single items. Otherwise, we have repaired in rest. I actually don't know why this is set to true. That seems a bit silly to me, but apparently that's the case by default on this stew. You have the eating animation, and we have some other animation parameters here. These aren't very relevant for us in this case, but we'll take more of a look at that when we get to the melee skill, Predator Leap. We have the stat holder. The really important thing here is the max durability. In this case, all food I think has a max durability of 100, and the differentiating factor on how quickly something degrades is contained by the item extension in the SL perishable. And this says how quickly your durability is removed on the food. So durability is the same as how long a food lasts. And we also have some other parameters here in regards to how it depletes in durability. So if it is disabled, if it's in your inventory, or if it's just is laying plainly in the world, if it will perish, or yeah, those kind of things. And then we have the effect transform. So whenever we are using the item from our inventory, it will apply the effects here. So for the Savage Stew, we have 4 things that are being changed. We have how much our food meter is changed whenever we are eating, and we have some different status effects which are inflicted on the user. In this case, we see that the effect controller is set to false, and this is kind of just a quirk whenever we're using food, because it's inherently assumed that it is inflicted on the character and not someone else. Right. And then we have the boon, which would be the rage or the amplified rage. So this might be a better way of checking for rage as well. If there's an equivalent, instead of checking for like has status effect, it is a has boon effect, as you saw earlier on Iron Sword. That might be the case, I don't remember. One quick thing regarding varnishes, because they might be a bit tricky. So here I opened up in items and I just searched up spiritual varnish here and I opened up this one, and you might be curious, how do you change the timer on how long you will get your imbue? And instead of here, instead of this effect transform on this varnish, then you have SL imbue weapon. So this is how you give imbues, and for that you need the imbue effect preset and you need the lifespan. So you can set this to 180 or you can set it to whatever you want for the lifespan, like how long the imbue lasts, and for the imbue effect preset, so this is what imbue is given in particular. In this case this will be the greater spiritual imbue. And if you go to status effect, we can then type in this number 208 and it has to be in the imbue effect instead of the disease. And we see that we get the greater ethereal imbue. Right, so this is the one that we get when we use this spiritual varnish, and you can change it to something else if you want. And you can also change it to your custom one. Okay, then we have skill. So skills, pretty much the same as earlier with the target ID and the new ID. We'll just start off by setting this to something new. I'm not sure if this is correct. I think so. I think the other one was 100,000. Okay, so I'll first just go over the main fields that we're gonna fill in, which is this purple stuff here. And we're also gonna go afterwards through a concrete example and apply that to a particular weapon. So hopefully that will cover most of the things. So let's jump right into it. We have X-Leap. This is basically the animation, which is for the cast type. Cast type says which animation that you're using. So X-Leap is the one that are connected to the Predator Leap skill. We have a modifier to a particular animation, and you have a couple of different ones. You have Immobilize, Mobile, Attack, and None. Not all of these work on any particular animation, so you have to figure out which one works. The easiest way to do this is to think, what animation do you want? Or maybe you want call, let's say it's something different than that. Let's do precise strike. Okay, you're gonna do precise strike, but you don't know which attack or which cast modifier you're gonna use. So you're gonna go here, you're gonna open precise strike is a reference to perfect strike. So we can open this and then we can check. Okay, it uses the attack cast modifier. There's also a way to check all of this when we are in the game. And check it, for example, on an enemy as well, so we can check whatever they are using. But I won't get into that until we get to shoot projectile type effects, and we'll do effects later at the end, as they're the most complex to figure out and use. Anyway, we're gonna use the X-Leap, so we're gonna go back and we're gonna set that probably towards the bottom, so I'm gonna go from the bottom up. X-Leap here. Okay, so we're gonna use X-Leap. Otherwise, we have cast local motion enabled. I think this is just like if you're allowed to move during the animation, and I think it also requires you to have mobile set to true. I'm not completely sure on that though, so I'll take that with a grain of salt. If you have mobile cast multiplier, this at least is, if you have this set to mobile, then this would be the movement multiplier. I think -1 is the same as what is originally, but you can set this to 0 if you want it to be stuck in place, or you can set this to 0.5 if you want to move at half speed. But yeah, we're gonna put this back at what it was. Then we have cast sheath required, that is set to 2. What that means is that if a value of 2 is selected, then you will unsheath your weapon, and you may then use the attack, but you won't be able to have your weapon sheathed while doing the attack. So that's basically what it means. So typical melee attacks have a cast sheath required of 2. If this were to be 1, then this would mean that you would sheath your weapon first before casting a skill. So an example of that would be using a lexicon and casting a rune. You would sheath your weapon first before going through with the animation. Lastly, we have a value of 0, and those are used for animations where you can use either or, so both works. So an example of this would be using spark. You can use spark while you are having a weapon drawn, or you can also work when you're having a weapon sheathed, so both works. In this case we're going to use a weapon, so we're going to have a value of 2. Then we have tags. This is basically we'll use this later, so you don't need to worry about this right now. Okay, we have effect behavior and effect transform. This will be due at the end, and then here further down we have some stats, and then VFX, visual effects, on the startup of the animation. So if you want to be having some puffs or smoke happen when you start the skill, you can do that. And then different requirements you can see here. So required items, this is typically used by sigils. Then we have ammunition, so for bows, this is if you're a trog or if you're a human. So close those. Then we have offhand, so if chakram skills, you require a chakram in your hand. Then we have required weapon times. This is important whenever you're doing damage through a class called SL weapon damage. That's the most common way of doing damage with skills. So I'm gonna spoil you guys, and I'm gonna go in here on effects. You don't need to read at all whatever I'm scrolling past or going through. The most important thing is that here at the end, when we're actually gonna do damage to the enemy through this skill, it uses SL weapon damage. And if I were to remove all of these required weapon types, this skill wouldn't do any damage at all. That is one of the quirky things about this specific implementation of doing damage. You need to have a weapon type set for it to even work. So be careful of that. And then we have required weapon tags. We'll actually use this later for our example. So you can say that only weapons with this particular weapon tag will be able to cast this skill, and you can be creative. So in the NPC weapons mod, then you have, for example, you have a cannon, and it's only the cannon that works with the skill. So this is how I would implement those kinds of restrictions on the skill usage. Yeah. Then we have a require imbue, which is used for elemental discharge and those kind of things, I think. But if you're ever curious about how to do things, just look at the template. So you generate a template from some of the existing skills here, and you see whatever they are doing, and then you learn through just observing how they apply things. So that's pretty much it. We jump into effect behavior first, and then we go into effect transform. So effect behavior says if whenever you're getting the template, so in this case we're getting predator leap, should it destroy the existing effects on the template before you apply your own, or should you just add your own at the end of that template? So that is what destroy says, that you destroy all of the existing effects on predator leap when you craft this new template, or you craft this new skill from the template. You can have override, so that means that if you have the same, I guess, classes or whatever, they'll be overridden, but otherwise you just add. And then you have none, and that just means that you keep the old ones. So you keep the old effects from predator leap, and then you add your own on top. So Typically you would use destroy on effect behavior. So that's what we'll keep here. So basically just we're gonna make it from scratch. So when we take a look at the effects transform, it can often be a bit confusing. Here you have effects, you have something called additional activation conditions, and then we have activation effects, but it's not as complicated as it may seem. You also have children and stuff. The main thing is that this effect just reads out this keyword tag, which is called activation here. So this is the same. That's the same as just calling it activation, and same here. This is just reading activation. That's basically what it's reading. Typically they call it activation effects, so I just got into a habit of writing activation effects like this. But the main thing is that it just reads for this tag. And if you have an effect here, it's gonna do that when you press the button. If you have an effect condition here, so for example a status effect condition, then you won't be able to press, or you won't be able to activate the skill, and you will see the skill is grayed out in your bar if you don't have this condition fulfilled here. So that is what the effect condition does on an activation type effect. Yeah. So if you have a condition on your activation type of effect, then you won't be able to use your skill, or you will be able to use your skill. That is different from this other type here, which is, although it says effects, it's actually empty. It's read as empty. It has a tag also called normal that's sometimes used. But the main thing here is that if you have an effect condition here, you will, like if you have this here with an effect condition called has status effect, then, and you didn't have it over here, then that means that you will be able to do this animation, but whenever the animation gets to the point where it invokes something called a spell cast, it will then check here if you have this available, and then during that animation you won't be able to set this off, or you will be able to set this off. So if you have a condition on the effects, then you'll be able to cast your skill, or if you have a condition on the effects, then you will always be able to cast the skill, but the effects won't always be present. If you have a condition on the activation, then you might not even be able to cast the skill. So that is an important distinction. And inside here you have something called children. This is the same as just putting it normally, really. They just pack it deeper. They use it, I think, to have multiple skills in a more abstract way. I guess they can name things. So you can call it rage, but it doesn't do anything really. So it's the same as putting it one layer above. So we're gonna do that, and we're not even gonna go one layer above, we're gonna pack it in the second one. So I'm gonna remove this, and we're just gonna use this, and we're gonna set this has status effect to be the same. So they actually asked if you have a rage status effect on you. We're gonna check the owner. Yeah. So you won't be able to cast this leap unless you have rage. You might actually have two of them. So I think I'll have two. And the other one that I want is I want to have warm. I'm not sure if it's called warm. So I guess we can do that quick check here. I won't go too much into status effects right now. Yeah, I think it is called warm. I'm not completely sure, but I'm okay with taking that risk. So we're gonna call this warm. So now we have two conditions, and then we're gonna do our effects. So I will now go through all of the different kinds of effects that I typically use on skills, and then afterwards we'll do the particular one that we need. So I'll add all of them that are typically used, and then I'll see you guys soon and we can describe them. Okay, then we got all of the effects here that we tend to use. The rest we don't use that often. So we have animation override, so this would be more advanced. People don't typically do that, this one, but you can basically make a custom animation, have it in Unity. You can create an asset bundle, just search on the internet how you do that. So you have Unity asset bundles. So you craft your asset bundle, you put it in a folder inside of your basically your mod folder, and then you can have a custom animation that you have made yourself. But I won't go too much into this. This is stuff that I have done myself in NPC weapons. Then we have play sound effect. So if you wanna play a sound effect at a particular time, you can do that. And you can set a delay here. So all of these typically have a delay that you can set, right? Then you have timed VFX. I don't recommend using the other version, which is play VFX, because play VFX will continuously run and never stop. So use play timed VFX instead, and then you can set the duration. Then we have create item effects. It just creates an item, so you need your item ID, which is here. You put that in, and then you have the quantity of how many items you add to the inventory when you use this skill or whatever. Then you have a remove item ID, which is from the sideloader extended effects mod. So yeah, just the opposite of what the other one is. You have effect stat. This is used, for example, with if you take a look at the skill called Juggernaut, we can open that here. When we scroll down, we know that it decreases your it increases our stability or impact resistance, which it does here. So the stat tags you find in the spreadsheet. So to find the spreadsheet, you can go to the modding Discord server. We just search spreadsheet, and we'll see we can find it here. We can open it, and then let's see here. We are gonna find the stat tag. I'm not sure if we have it here. So impact resistance, yeah. So here's the tags that you can use, so you can change your stuff. So I'm not sure if all of them work properly, especially stuff like health. So be a bit careful about that. I would always recommend looking at other things generated inside here and see whatever tags they use. So yeah, if you want health, like healing, then you search inside probably status effects, and you go to health recovery items, so health recovery 5, whatever, and then you open it up and you check what the stat tag is or whatever class they use. Okay, good. I'm gonna close those. Status effect, we already done these, and then we have basically the opposite, which is removing a status effect. We have now we get into damage. So we have punctual damage and we have weapon damage. So punctual damage, it does damage that is a flat amount. So you can add your own amount here, and you can add your amount of impact, which is this here. And then we have hit inventory, and I think this is just if you do durability damage when you cast this. I think that is what this means. Then we have weapon damage is the same as punctual damage, but you also get these damage multipliers. So things like moon swipe, a puncture, all of these attack skills, they have a damage multiplier and an impact multiplier. And here you also have the knockback when they are when they're knocked down and stuff. So things like execution, that's a skill for the two-handed axes, they have an increased multiplier against enemies who are being knocked down. So you can take a look, and you can search for, if you go back to items here, we can search for the skill, and then you can see that execution, and we'll see that whenever we go to hit effects, and this is probably as a weapon damage, yeah, you see that this does more damage when the enemy is knocked down. So I'm gonna close that again. So that's pretty much SL weapon damage. Remember that for SL weapon damage you need to have set your required weapon type here, otherwise you won't be able to trigger any damage at all. So remember that. Then we have shoot projectile and shoot blast, so typical things that are associated with spells. And enemies use these as well. They are very tricky to get working, but I got some tricks for you. Other than just looking at your typical other skills, for example, we can take a look at Spark. And Spark, you can produce different projectiles with that. You have Fireball, and which you see inside of here. You see shoot projectile, and you can take a look at these values, and you can put them into your own, and you'll create a copy of the Fireball from Spark. Or you can use some of the other ones, like the shrimp, what they call as shrimp blast, which uses a lightning projectile that explodes. Yeah, it's not really a projectile, but yeah, it explodes. I'll get into the other trick later, but in essence, then you use Unity Explorer, you investigate the enemy that you're interested in cloning a skill from, and you just copy paste the fields over from Unity Explorer into this sideloader interface for all the values here. Shoot blast pretty much the same, exactly the same, but it has a few less fields available, but it also has a radius. So the explosion, the size of the explosion. And you can do shoot projectile into shoot blast, so you can create a blast from a projectile, so you can chain them on and do interesting stuff there too. So yeah. But if you are curious of how to use these, then I recommend just opening it in a template and then taking a look. So yeah, you have that option always available. So always do that whenever you're curious about something and you don't know how to implement it. Just click on generate from template and you'll see. Then we have imbue weapon, which gives a weapon imbue. So you need the ID for the imbue. So let's see, we go into here, status effects, and we go to weapon imbue effects, and we go to divine imbue. This is called, it has a ID of 219, so this is the ID you put here, 219, and then the lifespan. So here is where you set the lifespan. You don't set the lifespan in the status effect window, but you set it here in the SL imbue weapon field of the SL weapon transform. SL effect transform, sorry. Okay, then we have summon. This is used for whenever you're summoning a ghost, also for sigils and placing sigils. You see this. And they don't have as much flexibility as other effects, because you only have one. You basically just put in a prefab here. So, and you can't really do many edits that easily on the prefab. You need to do some coding to do that. So let's just open up Fire Sigil. Sigil Fire. So here we have a summon inside of effects here. And it's called this number here. So it's kind of difficult to know which you have available. But yeah, I would just take a look at, existing stuff and incorporating those. But yeah, you have really low flexibility, but you can change some stuff here, the size probably, and where it's created. If you want to do more interesting stuff with the sigils, then you will need to do coding for it, unfortunately. So that's pretty much all of the major effects. You basically have the same for the conditions here. I don't think I'll go over this in like specific for all of them, but I think most of them are quite useful. Yeah, especially the has status effect. That's a very important one, but we already used it, so you guys know how to deal with it. So, okay, I'll clean this up quickly and then I'll be right back. Okay, we are ready. I cleaned up all the effects. Here we have the two base ones that we started with for the priority leap. And then we have shoot projectile. My idea is then that I do an attack and that causes those balls that you have from the obsidian elemental to spawn and shoot out and hit the enemies. You also get the emulate buff, which we'll do here. I guess we'll do this one first. It's a bit easier. So we go to status effect. We go to here, still SL status effect, and then we search in emulate, and we see that it has the name emulate as you see here. So we're gonna put that in, apply it, and apply it to the owner, and then we update this and save it. Then we have shoot projectiles, and it's a bit more tricky to figure out how to do this. And the way we're gonna do it is that instead of just trying to guess what this will be, we will actually go to Caldera and we'll see what the horse does. There we go. So I'll see you real soon when I found the horse. Okay, we got our obsidian elementals here. I'm gonna run closer to them. I'm gonna pause it so that I have them in view. I'm gonna use Unity Explorer mod. Take a look at the website on the Thunderstore if you wanna learn how to use it. But you use the keyboard shortcut to open it. It will open a menu similar to this. And then you're gonna click on Inspector. And we can actually click on this object and take a look at how they're composed. So we're gonna click on World. We're gonna use this mouse cursor. We're gonna click on the elemental. We see that we are actually on the skeleton for the animations of the obsidian elemental. So we're gonna go up a few steps in the hierarchy until we get the entire obsidian elemental. So we're gonna go a few up here, and we see there's gonna be one that has a lot of element here. So we just reached it, and we see that the obsidian elemental have a skill available, which is this homing missiles. And we're gonna go to effects here and shoot projectile. We see it has 16 projectiles and a lot of other fields that we're gonna fill out. It's mostly these purple ones that are related to our SL menu here. Or yeah. So we're gonna go into the projectile and we're gonna start applying the different stuff here. So add direction is 0, and if you go down, we see here add direction 0, 0, 0. Add rotational force is 0, 0, 0. Have that as well here. 0, 0, 0. Next one. Add to target is set to false. This is set to false. So those three are good now. Auto target max range 360 degrees. That's this one here. And okay, it's 360. Good. Next one is 5. Nice. Projectile force 25. Projectile force 7.5. 7.5. Alright. Target range 5, obsidian homing. So this one we need to change. So we click on this. Oops, I scroll a bit earlier. Go to O. It's in alphabetical order. There we go. Apply that. We saw earlier there is 16 projectiles here, so we need to add 16 of them. So here we go. We open this up. That's 1, and we, since it started the index on 0, we go to 15. There we soon go. There we go. So that is ready now. Next one. Base objective projector is done. This is 0. Don't find target self. And then we have ignore shooter collision is set to true. Ignore, that is good. That is set. So we have done this one too. Instantiate amount 16. So here we have 16 of them. Okay. I think this is good. We've done these already. Target count per projectile should be 1. So yeah, we have that set at 1. Target range is 20. We do 20 here. 0, 0, and then local cast position, and then we go 0, 2.2, and 0.6. So that's up here. This one is 2.2 and minus 0.6. No aim is also something, and this needs to be set to true. So we're gonna do this right away. Okay. What about these? So we have light intensity fade. I don't think we... Let me check. Do we have anything here? Fade. No. So we're not going to do anything there. I'm sorry. Destroy. So we can choose to destroy it, or we can... Yeah, we are going to destroy it. Gonna do hit effects. It might be the case that we need to use effects. I'm not sure. We'll see. I think we're gonna do a flat amount of damage. So we're gonna use punctual damage here. Just for simplicity. Did I go past it here? Let's see. PP. Here we go. Oh, the mouse. There we go. Then we do punctual damage, we do fire damage. How much fire damage? Let's see, it does 30 damage. And then 25. Or we can do 40. Make sure it's integers. There we go. I'm gonna do 20 and then double impact. No, 30. Okay, so hopefully this should be good. It might not actually have a sound, so we can attach a sound here. So we go down to play. Let's see here. Play sound effects. And we add a sound called probably something with fire. Something to do with fire. Fire heavy. Let's do fire medium. I'm not sure if that's the correct one, but I guess we'll see. Okay. I think we should pretty much be ready. We can do maybe an explosion as well. So we're gonna add shoot blast. And what I want to do is that I want to add a blast that's similar visually as what you see on Spark whenever you're using a fireball. Like Spark inside of a fire sigil, which causes a fireball and a fire explosion. And we can actually take a look at that. But I will put as a placeholder, because this I will actually do from the XML code itself. So I'm just going to add shoot blast here at the end. And I will overwrite this with what is inside of Spark. So whenever you don't know how to add, like which values to add. You can either do what I did with inspecting the enemy, or you can copy what is used already instead of existing I guess sideloader code, yeah, or sideloader XML. I'm not sure why I saved that, but it doesn't matter really. So we go here and we see here instead of spark we should have a shoot projectile, and this projectile itself has a blast effect, so it looks cool. So these are the two blasters we're gonna put on our that we're gonna use to replace our existing one. Okay. Now we're gonna head out, and we're gonna go here to our folder with our mod, and we're gonna take a look at Spark. We're gonna reload this, and we need to find the projectile. So the first one here is not the correct one. Close this. Here we see fireball, and then we have the projectile, and then inside this we have the two blasts. So these are the two blasts that we need. What I typically try to do is I remember this line here, and I follow this down, and we grab all the stuff inside of that line, and then all the way in to the left. And then we find the shoot blast that we just added after the shoot projectile. Probably this one here. So this is the code that we'll be replacing. I messed up and I hit the mouse button. Yeah, there we go. I went back here into the Predator Leap, and then I replaced this, and we see that it's just it's called justified incorrectly. Yeah, but we need to shift it over. So do shift and then tab to shuffle it in, so that it's in line with this other one here. And this will then probably damage the enemy. Let's see here. Punctual damage. This adds 60 fire damage. So what we can do is, just to balance things a little bit, is that we can go to the first blast here, and we can maybe half it. So, or we can remove all damage. Yeah, we remove all damage on this one, but we keep the impact, and then we do the opposite on the fire. I think that would be cool. So we do 0 here, and then we do 60 there, yeah. So now it will actually not scale in terms of damage though, which is not so good. So what I will do is that I'll actually change it, because we used the weapon damage here, and otherwise we used the multiplier on the other one. So we're gonna switch them out. So we change from punctual to the other one. So this is actually the wrong one. This has to be here, yeah. Okay. This is the punctual that we wanna replace. Take this, 60 and 0. Good. And here we change this to maybe we do 1.5, and we do 0 impact. We need to go through the code and take a look at all of the damage sources too, but it should now at least be able to run. So I will do all of the navigation inside of the program, inside of sideloader, because I find it a bit more easy to see what's going on and the structuring and all of the hierarchies. So booting up now. Let's see here. Open it up and go here. Predator Leap. Okay, so we have the 2 shoot blasts and we have another shoot blast here, so we're gonna check. So this one has 0 and then 2 times impact. Then we run over here. The projectile should do punctual damage. Yeah, 30 and then 40 impact. That's maybe a bit high, so we can maybe take this down to 15. And then maybe 20. That's still a lot of damage, so. Okay, and then back here. So now we're taking care of these 2, and then we check this. Does this actually do any damage? So this is the fire blast with 2 things here. Okay. Should be a bit careful because we have another one. 30 impact and 1.5 attack multiplier. That's kind of high. So 0 and then 1.5. I think that's okay actually. But there are 2 of them. Right, 2 effects. Okay, but those 2 are that. Fine. So that's okay. So that's 1 effect, but it has a sales build up too. Go here and it has nothing actually. So this is just like visual. Good. So it's basically 1.5 damage totally. Like in total, and then impact that's high. So I think we're good. The only thing now is that we want to make sure that I already done it actually, partly. So most people, you would see this. Weapon tag is this, so we're gonna add a weapon tag, and we want to make sure that this only applies to 1 weapon, and we're gonna do it for yeah, we're gonna do this for the Pyrite Great Hammer. So I'm gonna actually go do this, and we're gonna make a tag called this. So we go tag, and we just call it Pyrite Great Hammer. There we go. And then we go back to item. So we just created a tag, and then we create our Pyrite Great Hammer, and we need to edit it. There we go. And then we need the same ID because we want to overwrite it. We keep these the same, everything except the tag. And here we need that's not the right tag. We need to go back. I'm just gonna fetch it here. Okay, so now we have the tag there. And we wanna make sure that there's less conflict with other mods, so we're gonna go through here and we're just gonna delete all the ones except the top. Need to make sure that I don't delete the tags too. So we go up here and then afterwards down. Okay, and this one here. And then that's basically it. We got it ready to rock. Great. And that means that this will only be able to be used with the Pyrite Great Hammer. And I think that should be good to go. We can then close this. And another thing we can do here . Here we see the icon, so we can open this with another program. For example, I'm using often GIMP. It's not going to be pretty. I'm just going to do something really quick. So I'm going to use color and then colorize, and then we're going to change this to red or something. Something like that. Okay, then we overwrite it. discard. I'm not gonna change the skill icon, I don't care. And then I think we're good to test it out. So let's give it a try. So it seems to partly work, but the tracking doesn't work completely. Okay, we got it ready now. So I had to go over and change a couple of things. And one of the things was the no aim condition. I think I had it set to false. I had to take a closer look at the obsidian elemental as they were firing the... so basically I just walked up to an obsidian elemental. I made it fire the fireballs, the obsidian homing projectiles, and then I paused it. I examined the elemental, and I saw that the no aim condition was set to true. And then there's a couple of other things I did on the projectile itself. I saw that the trail time was set to this. I actually don't know what exactly this is, to be fair. Yeah, so I changed those things and also changed disable on hit so that whenever it hits an enemy, it doesn't go through them. And then, yeah, changed the aim end mode to normal instead of I had it at lifetime. So there's a couple of things I did change, and then lifespan and yeah, this. Otherwise it's pretty much the same as previously. So yeah, sometimes whenever, apparently, I didn't know this myself, but yeah, so you can write stuff off of enemies, but you might need to tweak it. But yeah, try to take a think of which parameters are logical that you might need to change, especially for the tracking. For example, auto target. Usually this I haven't seen this be turned on, but yeah, auto target or no aim, stuff like that. And then yeah, just take a look at the enemies as a reference. So I think those are the ones that I typically have targeting. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the skill. So there's one final thing which I did not mention, but it is yeah. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. If there's any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below. I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, you can go on Discord and you'll probably find me there in the Outward Modding Discord. So yeah, good luck with everyone, and yeah, see you guys around. I'll be trying to make the item source, drop table, and probably crafting recipe. That's like that's the next video. So probably be a much shorter one. This is like the most extensive video in the series. So yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you guys around.